Welcome to Bible for Modern Minds podcast.
Welcome back to the deep dive. Today, our mission is probably the most ambitious one we've ever set for ourselves.
I think that's fair to say.
We are wading into some seriously deep waters here. Philosophy, metaphysics, all based on a stack of sources that ask one single colossal question.
And that question isn't just, does God exist? I mean, that's often a debate about belief or, tradition.
Right.
We're asking, is God real? Is this idea, this concept, a necessary part of reality itself, or is it just something powerful that we as humans manufactured?
Exactly. And the source material, it's pretty clear that the stakes are as high as they get. If God is real, then everything, consciousness, morality, purpose, it all has a foundation.
But if God isn't real, the sources argue that, meaning just collapses.
Yeah.
And existence becomes this fundamentally unexplained accident.
Yeah.
So this is going to be a rational intellectual exploration. We're trying to set aside the religious baggage and just look at the philosophical arguments step by step.
The goal here is to see if God, as these texts define him, is a logically necessary reality, the thing you need to explain the world we actually live in. Okay, so let's start right there with definitions. Because when you say the word real, most people immediately think of, things they can touch.
Physical objects, a coffee mug, a star, a law of physics you can measure.
Right. But if God is real, he can't be real in that sense. So we have to start by defining what real means beyond just matter.
That is the essential first step. We have to acknowledge that reality it's just so much bigger than the physical.
Okay.
Think about all the non-physical truths we accept as real every day. Like mathematical truth, 2 + 2 is 4. It's universal, it's absolute.
You can't weigh the number 4.
You can't weigh it,
Right.
but the rule it represents is foundational to everything. Or what about concepts like justice?
Right. Or love. I can see the effects of justice, but I can't put justice itself into a bucket.
Precisely. We all know these non-physical things, love, moral values, logic, meaning, are undeniably real even though you can't measure them with a thermometer.
So they exist in a different way, a deeper realm.
And that's what philosophers call metaphysical reality. The physical world is one layer, and the metaphysical is this non-physical layer of meaning, truth, and existence itself.
Okay, so if God is real, that's where he is, in that metaphysical layer.
Correct. The sources we looked at define God not as an object inside the universe, like some kind of super powerful alien.
He's not just another planet or star.
No. He is the ground of existence, the necessary foundation on which everything else rests. It's like the difference between a painting and the canvas it's painted on.
That's a crucial distinction. But okay, let's face the major counter-argument head on. The idea that God is just a human invention.
The psychological illusion.
Yes, a projection of our fears, our hopes, a comfort blanket.
This is a powerful critique, and the sources have a fascinating response to it. The core argument is this. If humans invented God to make themselves feel better, that God would look a lot like us.
He'd be predictable, controllable.
And indulgent. He would reflect human desires perfectly. Think about the gods in Greek mythology.
Right. They were petty, jealous, flawed, basically just superhuman versions of us with all our baggage.
Exactly. Those gods were easy to negotiate with. You sacrifice a goat, maybe they'll help you win a war. They mirrored our own ethical standards or a lack thereof.
But the God we're talking about here, the God of monotheism, of philosophy, is completely different.
Drastically different. This entity is defined as being infinitely transcendent, morally perfect, and this is key, completely beyond human manipulation.
So this God actually confronts our flaws. He demands accountability.
He insists on a moral standard that is often really inconvenient for us. So the logic is, why would we invent a God who judges us and tells us we need to change?
We wouldn't. If you're looking for psychological comfort, you invent a God who approves of you.
That's the argument. The very nature of this concept of God seems to refute the idea that it's just a projection of our own desires.
Okay, that makes sense. So let's shift to the why of existence, the really fundamental question. Why is there something instead of nothing? Because if there's no grounding reality, the sources say nothing is the default state, and nothing can't cause anything.
And this is where we run into the logical need for a necessary reality. The central problem here is what's called the problem of infinite regress.
Right.
Everything we see in the universe is contingent. It depends on something else for its existence. You exist because of your parents. The Earth exists because of gravity and matter forming.
Yeah.
Everything is a link in a chain.
And if everything is contingent, that chain of causes has to start somewhere. You can't just have an infinite chain stretching back forever.
You can't. It's a logical impossibility.
Go.
An infinite chain can't actually be completed in reality. I mean, think about it. If you had to cross an infinite number of steps to get here,
You'd never arrive.
you would never arrive. So an infinite series of past moments can't lead to this present moment if there was no starting point.
So the chain must have a beginning. There has to be a first thing that wasn't caused by anything else.
Precisely. And this logical necessity points toward a necessary being, a reality that exists by its own nature outside the chain of cause and effect. This is what philosophers have called the unmoved mover,
The prime reality.
the prime reality.
Okay, but I have to pause here because this is the challenge everyone raises. If everything needs a cause, then who created the creator?
The single most important counter question.
Mm.
And it all comes down to a misunderstanding of that term, necessary being.
Okay.
Everything contingent needs a cause. The chair, the planet, you and me. But the very definition of God, in this philosophical sense, is that he is the exception to contingency.
He's the one thing that, by definition, cannot not exist.
Exactly. The necessary being is defined as being uncaused. It is existence itself. So asking who caused the uncaused cause is like asking what does the color blue smell like?
It's an incoherent question. The properties don't apply.
Right. God isn't another link in the chain. He's the explanation for why there's a chain at all.
Okay, that provides a logical foundation. But why does this necessary being have to be personal? Why can't it just be some giant impersonal force, like a cosmic energy field that's just always been there?
That's the next jump. We go from the fact of existence to the nature of existence. An impersonal force, it just operates mechanically. It doesn't choose.
Like steam from boiling water. It just happens once the conditions are right.
Perfectly put. There's no choice or intention. But when we look at our universe, we see intentional order, fine-tuned laws, and most importantly, we see conscious minds, us.
Right.
Intention and choice are attributes of personhood, of a mind. A blind force doesn't suddenly decide to create a universe. A conscious entity chooses to.
Which brings us to consciousness itself, maybe the biggest puzzle of all. The sources argue this is some of the strongest evidence that the ultimate reality must be personal.
They do, and it's based on this core principle that the lesser cannot produce the greater.
Think about it. How do you get self-awareness, reason, moral truth, all these attributes of a mind, to just suddenly spring out of unconscious, non-aware matter?
You're talking about trying to get gold from mud that has no gold in it.
That's a great way to put it. You can't derive consciousness from non-consciousness. The simple fact that we are aware that we can have this conversation strongly suggests that the source of existence must also be conscious and personal.
So a conscious God is the most elegant explanation for a universe that contains consciousness.
It is, yeah.
Let's shift gears a bit to morality. This is where this whole question really hits our daily lives. If God isn't real, then morality is just subjective, right? It's just opinion or cultural agreement.
Precisely. If we are the ultimate source of right and wrong, then morality is fluid. What's wrong today could be right tomorrow if we all just voted on it.
But that's not how we experience it. We experience it as something absolute. We have this deep universal sense that torturing an innocent child isn't just something we dislike, but that it is fundamentally, eternally wrong.
Yes.
That's the key. Morality feels like a command, a set of truths that are external to us. They don't come from us. They often judge us. And the sources argue this universal sense of moral duty points to an objective moral reality, a perfect standard that grounds truth and justice.
And if that higher moral reality exists, it points right back to God.
You connect all the dots.
Yeah.
We experience this moral reality, and that reality requires an uncaused, perfect moral mind to sustain it.
And on a similar note, there's this universal human hunger. It's not just for food or security. We all seem to hunger for these transcendent things, for truth, beauty, purpose, unconditional love.
This longing is a really powerful indicator that the sources highlight.
Yeah.
We all search for a meaning that the physical world just can't seem to provide. We try to fill that hole with stuff or success.
But the hunger is still there.
It's still there. And this is where they use that beautiful, memorable analogy.
I love this one.
Yeah. The spiritual longing implies a spiritual reality exists, just as physical hunger implies food exists. If you're hungry, you trust that there's an external reality food that can satisfy it.
You don't just assume your hunger is a biological mistake.
Right. So why would we assume that our deepest, most profound hunger for infinite meaning and perfect love is a cosmic accident that corresponds to nothing?
That reframing really suggests a kind of design to our very nature.
It suggests we're designed for a transcendent source. These deep needs point beyond ourselves.
Okay. We've laid out the logical case for a necessary, personal, moral being. But now we have to circle back to the biggest practical objection for most people. If God is this foundational reality, why is he so elusive? Why isn't he just physically observable like any other real thing?
Because, as we said at the start, the creator can't be a part of the creation.
The painter is not in the painting.
The painter's not in the painting. If God were a visible object inside the universe, he'd just be another contingent being. He'd be subject to the laws he created.
So we can't expect to find him with a telescope. We know him through reason, through experience, the same way we know logic is real.
Absolutely. The sources argue God is known by being the context for all experience, not an object within the experience.
Which brings us to this specific challenge, the problem of hiddenness. Why doesn't God just show up, a booming voice from the clouds, prove his existence, and end all the debate?
The material addresses this by arguing that, well, that kind of clarity isn't the ultimate goal. If God revealed himself so coercively that you had no choice but to believe,
There'd be no freedom in that response.
there would be no genuine freedom. Belief would just be an unavoidable reaction to overwhelming evidence. It wouldn't be a choice of the will, a choice of love.
So for a free relationship to be possible, God has to maintain a certain level of obscurity.
He has to. The argument is that God hides enough for faith to be possible, but he reveals enough for those who are genuinely seeking. His hiddenness is an invitation, not a denial.
And finally, that sense we all get sometimes, that feeling of awe, that pull of our conscience, that's the direct experience of God as the ground of our being.
It's the experience of our existence being sustained. Because God is the foundation, we as contingent beings are inherently connected to our source. So those feelings of inner guidance and moral conviction are seen as signs that the ultimate reality is constantly upholding and interacting with us.
So let's summarize this monumental deep dive. We've moved way beyond God as just a superstition. The philosophical arguments here define God not as a last resort, but as the necessary explanation for everything we can't deny.
Right, the existence of order, the need for a first cause, the reality of our own consciousness, the existence of objective morality.
And the source material really concludes that if God is not real, if existence is just random, then morality is baseless, consciousness is an unexplained miracle, and meaning is just a temporary thing we made up.
But if God is real, if he is that necessary being, then everything finds its grounding. He is the foundation for existence, the ultimate mind that explains consciousness, and the moral reality that makes right and wrong mean something.
The implications are just foundation shaking. And the sources end this whole discussion with what they call a rational invitation, which is, if reason points toward this transcendent, necessary being, what should a person do with that information?
And the answer is simple.
Yeah.
Seek. The claim is that reality is not afraid of honest seekers. The truth demands an active investigation and an honest look at the evidence to see where it leads you, outside of your own comfort zone or what you've always been told.
That pursuit is what really matters.